Good morning, boys and girls. This is Mr. Montano, and I'm talking to you live from Mr. Montano's kitchen, lab, slash classroom. So we have all three today. We have the kitchen, the lab, and the classroom, all associated together. I'm going to take just a few seconds here just to share with you what I'd like for you to learn today. If you missed my lesson this week, you weren't in class this week for whatever reason, this is going to be a recap of what we discussed, beginning with the essential question. And I'm going to show you the essential question now. So if you'll bear with me, I'll rotate my camera, spin her around, let you have a good look at that essential question. And there it is. Essential question is about energy, and it deals with energy, and we're going to be studying energy for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Okay. How have you used or have experienced using energy? Can you describe the source of your energy and what device or tool or toy you were using when using energy? So this is a lengthy question. It's 2 questions that I'm asking you here, and so I'm asking you to answer them with a complete thought, a complete sentence. And in doing so, just don't use yes or no. Use yes. I have experience using energy, and this is what I've used. I use battery-powered energy when I'm playing with my phone and my games on my phone, etc. So that's just an example of what I want you to write about. Okay, when I ask you to share your experience in using energy. Okay. Then the next thing I need you to do after writing your energy question is record and write these down. You don't have to. It's attached to your classwork. So inside your classwork, you'll find under specials for STEAM, you'll find your worksheet there along with your assigned quiz. So you'll have 2 pieces, or actually you'll have 2 copies of which you'll have to work from. One is your vocabulary word list. The other one happens to be your quiz, your assigned quiz, okay? And there's only 4 questions, but they all regard or give reference to energy, okay? And since if you did miss our class, I'll just do a quick recap with you about what our class was about. It was, of course, about energy, and we talked about the different types of energy listed below. And so we start with kinetic energy, and we talked about kinetic being that energy which is energy in motion or being used. So that's energy in motion. It's in action. Number 2 is potential energy or stored energy. We call that potential energy, stored energy to be used later. Okay. So you have a combination of both kinetic and potential. When you're asleep, it's potential energy that you're storing. When you're awake, you're utilizing your kinetic energy. That's energy in motion. Number 3, we're going to talk about these different sources for energy. Number 4, we did a transference of energy. The transference was that of heat transference. When we took our hands and we rubbed our hands together and we started slowly, we began to feel a little bit of heat generated, and then when we went faster, we felt more heat being generated. And so as we were actively moving those molecules attached to our hands all over the place, and they became hot. They became hotter and hotter the more we started rubbing our hands together and creating more friction. And so that friction is then transferred. It's a transference of these molecules from one hand to the other, and they're really running together, and they'll be creating this heat energy between our hands. And you can feel it if you rub vigorously your hands together and then place them on your face. You can feel that heat. Okay. And that, of course, was caused by the energy we generated, that physical energy, okay, that we generated. Number 5, solar energy. We can rely on solar energy because we have a reliable source for solar energy, and that's the sun. So the sun is a provider of solar energy. The only time we have some difficulties without it, of course, is at nighttime, because the sun's on the opposite end of the earth. Not end, but the opposite side of the earth. Okay, and then of course during the day we might have clouds that preclude or block the sun from shining in on our solar panels. Okay, Number 6 is hydro energy. We talk about hydro energy. That's energy that comes from water, water resources. So those water sources could be rivers and streams and creeks where water's in motion and it causes let's say it's a wheel or a turbine that it's turning, and that in itself is captured in this generator, and the generator transfers that energy to electric lines, and it takes that electricity to the grid. Okay, the network of power, the grid they call it, and it's distributed throughout our homes and our offices, buildings, commercial buildings, etc. And then we talk about other turbines above the water, or using only one source called the wind. So it relies on the wind as a source of energy to turn those big turbines, which in turn are tied to a generator, which stores the energy that it creates to distribute later to the grid. And then we talk about batteries, the different types of batteries we talked about, with a NiCad or nickel cadmium batteries. And those batteries are renewable batteries or reusable batteries because you're able to recharge them. And then we talked about alkaline batteries, of course, which are more affordable. They're low end price wise. And then we talked about the more expensive batteries like lithium batteries. Okay, and later on we'll talk about solar batteries. Solar batteries are pretty pricey as well, but they too store energy, and they convert the DC direct current of energy to alternate current, which can be used in homes and can be used in buildings. Okay, we're also going to talk about physical energy. Physical energy, and when we talk about physical energy, we're talking about mechanical energy as well. When we talk about physical and mechanical energy, we're talking about energy we create, we ourselves can create. When we use a tennis racket or a baseball bat to strike the ball, or to strike the tennis ball, or to strike the golf ball, we use a golf club. Okay, and we talked about that, and I illustrated that for you in our class, how those particular balls, have energy of their own, and thus when more energy applied to that battery with that ball, causes that ball to travel at a faster rate of speed and at a more accurate distance. And so we're going to talk more about that as we continue our study on energy over the next 4 to 6 weeks. Then lastly, emissions. We talked about emissions being part of the reason why we have to come up with these alternative resources of energy, or sources of energy. We have to come up with the purpose of doing that, coming up with a solution to pollution, which unfortunately is contributed by the vehicles that we drive, because we use non-renewable resources like gas or coal, fuel, oil. Those are non-renewable resources, because once those run out, that's it. That's all you've got. And of course, in the process of utilizing those sources of energy, guess what? It pollutes our air. The emissions that they give off pollute our air, and they pollute not only our air, they pollute our water. Not only our water, our environment. So we have to be very careful with that. We're going to talk more at length about that. And then we'll talk about renewable sources of energy, of course, renewable sources being like water, because water is renewable, comes in the way of earth. Well, you wouldn't think we'd get rain, but it comes back to us in the way of rain, okay? And so, and the same is true of wind. We can depend on the wind as a renewable source of energy. And so we can always depend on solar energy, because the sun is with us and provides power daily, okay? So we're going to be discussing all these. We'll be discussing these more at length as we go along through our study of energy, okay? What I'd like to share with you next is a reading that from a book that I have here entitled Toad on the Road. And so I shared that with the class, but before we even go there, let's talk a little bit about the energy that's expended by these balls. And these balls, you'll notice, all I'm doing is dropping the ball. I'm not throwing the ball. I'm not using any of my energy to throw or to place any force upon the ball. It bounces on its own, okay? And it's doing that based on the way this ball is designed and how it's made. It's a hollow core. It has nothing but air, but inside there's a rubber wall lined inside this tennis ball. So if I were to cut it open, the contents within it would be nothing more than air and rubber. And so I want you to know about that, okay? And the next thing I wanted to share with you was about this here, this particular golf ball, which has a core. It has an inner, unlike our tennis ball, which has only air. This has all the air removed from it, and it has a solid core. The core consists of three things. It consists of cork, string, and of course the center of the ball is rubber, hard rubber. The elasticity on the outside is a rubber coating that's been painted, if you will, okay? And so this particular golf ball can be struck with a golf club, and it too travels at a great rate of speed. And because it has a dimple design, it's intended to break through wind. And what that means is when it goes through the wind or goes through air, that the dimples actually help the ball to travel further because it deals with the resistance of the air or the wind that comes against it directly, okay? And it causes the air to ride over the ball, under the ball, and so it thus creates more loft for the ball to travel and further distances to travel. So two things are happening at the same time. Unlike the tennis ball, when you strike it with a racket, okay, it needs force behind it. It needs physical energy, our physical energy, to drive the ball forward, okay? And as a result of that, you two are creating, with your force, of course, you're causing this tennis ball to travel at a much faster rate of speed. And you'll notice that the outside of the ball is fuzzy. It has a fuzzy lining to it. And so the purpose of that, from what I understand, and looking at it aerodynamically, it does offer a little resistance, particularly when it hits the pavement or the surface in which you're playing tennis on, as a way of gripping and then bouncing, okay, and sending the energy in a direction that you might not expect. And so the tennis ball is an interesting ball in that it offers these two channels here. I don't know if you can see the rubber linings, okay, but there's some rubber linings there, and that creates an aerodynamic effect of spinning the ball. It causes the ball to spin, and at a high velocity, at a high speed, okay? And so I found that out, not only playing tennis, but I found that out just studying the aerodynamics of a ball and the way that a ball is made. You'll notice that in a lot of similar ways, it's made like a baseball, and baseballs have seams where these have seams, and the baseball seams seem to be a way for pitchers to manipulate that particular ball when they're throwing the ball using physical force. They throw that ball, they can change the aerodynamics of that ball based on how they use those particular seams of the ball. So something to be aware of next time you're looking at a ball. You know, I've seen racket balls which have no seams whatsoever, but then they're made of rubber. And I've never had an opportunity to play racquetball, but I sure would like to. But it'd be interesting to see how you change the aerodynamics of that ball, being that it has no seams whatsoever, okay? All right, so that's just a brief overcap of what we discussed in class. We did talk about stored energy or potential energy being stored in a casing, such as this. It's called a battery casing. This is a battery, a heavy-duty battery. This is a lithium battery. This is not a lithium, I'm sorry, alkaline battery, okay? And so it's a heavy-duty battery used for a flashlight that I use, or I have as a backup if I need it in case the lights go out. In any case, those are just some of the sources of energy we discussed, and some of the tools or devices, or in this particular case, some of the balls that generate some of their own energy, along with the way they are made to deal with energy. The last thing I wanted to share with you is we did do a lab in class, a small lab. We took this particular tennis ball and this particular golf ball, and we did do a little mini lab where we dropped the balls, and we found out, much to our amazement, we thought the bigger ball would jump higher or come up higher as a result of bouncing off the floor, fighting against gravity to come back up, right? And we found out that the larger ball didn't do quite as well as the golf ball. The golf ball, because of its diameter and its size and its aerodynamics, came up a lot higher and fought the pull of gravity, that invisible force we call gravity, did a lot better under those circumstances than what the tennis ball would. Okay. In any case, you wouldn't have suspected that, but you know, bigger ball, more resistance. The golf ball is heavier than the tennis ball, not by a lot, but it is heavier. But this is denser, so this has some density to it. So that's going to give this a little bit more speed, I think, coming up. And it's going to give it a lot more energy as well because it's tightly wound inside, where this is empty. It actually just has a core of air, and that's about it, other than the rubber lining inside, so that if I were to cut the ball open, you'd see that it's nothing more than a concaved shell on one side and on the other. And then together, of course, placed together, they become a ball. Okay. Anyway, what else can I share with you quickly here? Home science lab. I had wanted to share with you. One of the ones that we talked about doing was taking some paper and a pencil and making on the paper a pinwheel. Let me see if I can find that for you. But in any case, that will be another video that I have attached to this video. And in that home lab, what I want you to do is, after creating your pinwheel, tie a string to your pinwheel for safety purposes, but also for the sake of the lab as well, so that you can see the end result. But in that, I want you to take the paper, and it just has to be an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. It can be blank, it can be lined, however you want. And once making that pinwheel, that it's a picture of a target, on the tail end of that, I want you to put a hole in it and tie a string to the back of the tail, and then hold it above a candle, lit candle. Certainly don't let the paper touch the candle because it will light on fire, but keep it at a fair distance. And a fair distance, I mean 3 to 6 inches, and then record your results. What do you observe? What is the candle doing to the surrounding air? What is it doing to the paper, your pinwheel that you created? Record those results for Mr. M in your home lab, if you will, please. Well, this concludes our study on energy for this week. If you have any questions, call me, 333-8353, Mr. M. That's my phone number, area code 505. Or you may email me at montano_c@aps.edu. Or you can get hold of me also through your classroom dojo at Mr. M. Steam, okay? It's been nice seeing you again, talking to you again. And again, if you missed a class, well, you can make it up now. Be sure to go to your classwork. Your classwork pages are there along with your new quiz assignment, okay? And your vocabulary word list. Mr. Montano saying adios, amigos. Until then, we'll talk to you soon.